Welcome back to Vox Terra, aka Hidden Agendas. You know, the left should be the heroes of the world, but why aren't they? Well, one big reason, and I've said before, are these one-sided narratives over certain issues within the social liberalism. This unwillingness to tolerate any dissent from the main narrative. If you disagree on these topics, you're just driven from the club. Well, let's examine a line I've heard over and over again. A line I believe intended to silence counter narratives to what we call trans identity. What that line is that people like to say is, you are conflating sex and gender. You are conflating sex and gender. What does that mean? Me conflating sex and gender. Conflate mean me no understand, me stupid. You know what? I'm going to argue it's just as arguable to say, no, it's the opposite. It's you who are conflating sex and gender. Sex is a biological category or a taxonomic category. Ovaries and mammary glands, female. Testes, male. Sexual reproduction of the mammalian class, which, do not forget, my fellow humans, we are mammals. We are an animal. Setting aside instances of biological hermaphroditism and arguments about other subtle forms of sexual expression, because arguably really everything exists on a spectrum, what they like to say, it's on a spectrum, and yeah, but everything's on a spectrum, and it's an interesting mental exercise. But it starts to feel like hair splitting. So then what's gender? Well, if you are insisting that gender is something different than sex and not just a mere synonym, then I would say we are referring to the affects or cultural assignations of sex that society uses. What clothing, adornments, mannerisms, vocal intonations, hairstyles, roles, jobs, and careers does society say, hey, those are the way women dress and act and do. Those are the way men act and dress and do. Archetypical internalized imagery of what is masculine and what is feminine. Largely culturally bound and arguably and definitely some level of arbitrariness to them. Now, take aside from the modern day trans movement, you've got people that have questioned the affects and assignations of these roles going throughout time. I remember when if you can remember far back enough, why can't women wear pants? Why can't men wear dresses, nail polish and makeup, and so on? In an earlier era, there was more push to question roles and argue against making assumptions about sexual orientation of those who did question the affects assigned to the sexes. In the case especially of men, those questioning the affects, well, the dominant thinking held fast to also question orientation. Now society has gone one further. If a man or boy, women as well, gravitates to the affects of the opposite sex, not just to society and by extension the individual observed by society, question orientation, now they question their sex itself. Maybe I was born the wrong sex. You identify with the cultural assignations of the opposite sex, and now your very biology is brought into question. And it is believed that then the solution is to alter the body in a way to appear to conform to the image of the opposite sex. So the body, as born, as naturally formed, now, quote, needs hormonal treatments and surgeries to remove parts, add synthetic parts that will create what I'll call a cursory or at first glance appearance of being the opposite biological sex. You could argue that is capitulation to the dominant culture. Therefore, it is reasonable to argue that it is the trans identity movement, as it comes to altering the body, that has conflated sex and gender, rather than those who, quote, are not getting trans, close quote. And as these arguments that I made seem reasonable, in my opinion, it is the intolerance for dissent on such issues that has driven people who would otherwise agree with the left into the arms of the right. I hope you found this interesting, helpful. Make sure you subscribe, click the notification bell, comment, like, check out the Patreon page, support there, check out the Etsy shop. And as always, until next time, peace be with you.